Hey, this is Mr. Drogemeyer. Thanks for joining me for our Algebra 1 lesson videos. Today we're in Unit 3 looking at lessons 2 and 3, which is about solving linear equations. And we're going to start with a few vocabulary terms that we talked about in the previous unit. So we talked about variables, coefficients, and constants. Remember, a variable is representing an unknown value for us. Coefficient's going to be the number that's before that variable or a constant. And then a constant is a real number term that's in our equation. So we also want to remember that an equation has an equal sign. Expression is going to be a set of terms, but we're not going to have an equal sign here. So in this one, we're talking about linear equations. So we do have an equal sign, and we want to look at how do we solve for that missing value for that variable in the linear equation. And so our goal when we are solving these linear equations is we want to isolate the variable. We want to get that variable term by itself on one side of the equation. And to do that, we're going to use what are called our properties of equality. And I think the best way to look at that is we're going to look at an example here. So if I start with this first equation, I have 3x minus 4 equals 5. And I want to solve for x. I want to know what is the value of x that will make this equation true. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to isolate that variable. We want to get this x term by itself on one side of the equal sign. And so to do that, right now we are subtracting 4 from 3x. We're going to use the addition property of equality to remove that subtraction, because addition is the inverse operation of subtraction. We are going to basically undo that subtraction, and so we're using that addition property of equality to do that. So to undo that subtraction, I'm going to add 4, and if you think of that equal sign as a balance, I need to keep this equation in balance. So if I add 4 to one side of the equation, then I also need to add 4 to the other side of the equation. And so when I do that, I have 3x minus 4 plus 4. Well, negative 4 and positive 4, when I add those together, they zero out, which leaves me with just 3x. On the right side, 5 plus 4 is 9. And so now I have that 3x is equal to 9. Well, when I talk about isolating the variable, I want it to just be that variable. So I just want to have x. Right now I have 3 times x equals 9. The multiplication sign is understood there. So we want to think about, well, what's the inverse or the opposite operation of multiplication? Right now we're multiplying x by 3. If I want to undo that multiplication, I would use division. So the division property of equality, I'm going to divide 3 from this side to undo that multiplication. Want to keep this equation in balance, so if I do that on the left side, I need to do the same thing on the right. So 3x divided by 3, well, 3 divided by 3 is just 1, so this is 1x. We usually don't write the 1 with the x. And then 9 divided by 3 is 3, and so x is equal to 3. That is my solution for x. I can check my work here by taking that value that I found for x and plugging it back into the equation. So if I plug in 3 for x in that original equation, this would be 3 times 3 minus 4 equals 5. Using our order of operations, we do the multiplication first. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 minus 4 equals 5. That checks out because 9 minus 4 is 5. X equals 3 is a good solution. All right, let's take a look at our next example then. In this one, we have 1/2 times x plus 8 equals negative 2. And so again, we want to start by isolating that variable. So right now, the x is being multiplied by 1/2, and then we are subtracting 8 from it. Well, if I'm, or excuse me, we're adding 8 to it. So if I want to undo that addition, subtraction is my inverse operation. So I'm going to subtract 8. And if I do it on one side, I'm going to do the same on the other side. 1/2 x plus 8 minus 8. The plus and minus 8, those zero out. And I'm just left with 1/2 x. On the right side, -2 minus 8, or I could think of it as a -2 plus a -8, is -10. So right now I have 1/2 times x. I can either think of that as 1/2 times x. Another way of looking at that is that's the same as taking x divided by 2. And no matter how you look at it, to undo that multiplication by 1/2 or to undo that division by 2, to undo that I would need to multiply by 2, by whatever that we were dividing by. So if I multiply by 2 on that side, I also need to multiply by 2 over here. And so on the left side, 2 times x divided by 2 is just x. Those 2's kind of cancel each other out. They divide to 1. And then -10 times 2, that would be -20. And so my solution here is x equals -20. Again, I could plug that back into that original equation. I'm just going to talk through it instead of writing it down here. So that would be 1/2 times -20. Well, 1/2 times -20 would be -10. And then -10 plus 8 would equal -2. So our solution checks out. All right, well, that's all I've got for you today on solving linear equations. Appreciate you taking the time to watch. If you do have questions, please let me know. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.